Good afternoon, good evening, good night, and good day. And yet again, we are back with another episode of War in the Webway. As always, I'm Ollie, and I'm joined by my esteemed, you love him, everybody loves him, Alun. How you doing, Alun?
Trust me, there's some players that don't. But hello everyone. Lovely to be back again, and we're back after a bit of a break.
We are back after a bit of a break. Personal things,
yeah,
life, other things going on. So thank you for everyone for staying with us. We always said at the start this is going to be inconsistent, but I think this one's probably been the longest break we've done so far. And let's try and get some consistency back with it. So this week we want to talk about the most recent tournament we both went to, which was the couple of weeks ago now, but it's the ITT up in Birmingham. For those that don't know, the ITT is a teams tournament, international teams tournament, where teams of 5 compete against each other. And there were 70 teams that went. Now, the backdrop of all this is we played Leviathan deck, we played teams. It's not the usual way that people might interact with a tournament. So some of the stuff we might talk about isn't relevant for solos, but we kind of think that there's a lot that we learn. I learned a lot based on the matchups we want to put you into, how your list worked, how your list built, and then your results as well. And we kind of want to share, like, what did we learn? It's 5 games in 2 days of not always tailored matchups. And I think you did very well. So I think we just want to get into it and kind of go through your matchups, your list. What did you learn? What were we thinking about? How did we do X, Y, Z? Anything from you before we start?
It's just to echo that point around, obviously the way we kind of approached it would be slightly different to like a singles tournament. However, I think what I definitely took away would be beneficial for like a purely singles player is, we'll touch on it throughout the episode, but there's certain interactions. So, for example, one unit into this other unit, it did X.
Yeah.
Or that did Y. Now that would be relevant still into within a singles environment. So it's very well. Let's just say I made the list. I had 2 practice sessions with the list before. I mean, both practice sessions were after we'd submitted the lists.
Yep. Yeah. It's just the wrong way around. Like we were like, this is what we're stuck with. It's fine.
And it worked very well. I felt like it did anyway. It felt very there were some really touch and go moments, but we'll touch on those.
Cool. So, just for those of you that aren't used to teams formats or what they look like, just very 1 minute quickly. What happens is you get 5 teams versus 5 teams, and
5
player teams, yeah. And each team puts down a defender, and then the other opposing team puts down 2 attackers, and the defenders get to pick their matchups. So there are ways to engineer certain matchups, and there's ways to avoid certain matchups. Now, with the meta as it currently is, we were looking at Ironstorm, sort of Bully Boys or Green Tide, and then a version of Necron, Hypercrypt, up and down kind of thing. The other thing to know about teams is that certain matchups that you don't think were going to be very good, or like certain armies that aren't very good, because you can engineer big wins, they show up more often. And so you have to have in the back of your head, like, what's an uncommon matchup? How might I win that? Who's the best person to go into something that, spamming out? We didn't face it, but, bunch of knights, for example. Knights have always been considered a very good team's army as a checklist. So the teams tournament we went to, I did some numbers stats beforehand, and it's really interesting. Usually, there's always a Custodes player in the majority of teams, and the reason for that is they can score quite nicely. They're very tough to take down. The strats, because of the defense in the past, have always been up there, and because of the way that engineering it can work, they go down as first or second defender, usually second defender, and get to pick up a very nice matchup for Custodes. The other thing to know about teams, especially for the UK and for the UKTC ones, is they use WTC scoring. Now what that means is points differential matters. So the bigger your win, the more points you get for your team. The closer you keep the win or the loss, the fewer points the other person can score, and you can keep it tight. And I love that because it means you're always playing with something. So even if you're getting hammered by 20 points, you're like, cool, I've just got to keep it to 20 points. So just don't take your foot off the gas. don't worry about it. Just keep it close, because I'm making sure I take a big hit for somebody, and somebody else on one of my team's tables will be trying to balance it back out. So I love teams. Teams is my favourite way of playing the game, and if you haven't played it, I would recommend highly that you play it. So what's interesting about the ITT is that because Custodes just came out, usually what you see is people spamming the latest and greatest codexes, because they just do. And out of 70 teams, there were 8 Custodes players, so about 10%, which I found fascinating, because it kind of goes to what everything we said was going to be there. And we were talking about it before we went, and we were like, do you play Custodes or do you play Grey Knights? And we came down on the side of you playing Custodes because, one, we just wanted you to have fun, and we were playing for fun team. 2, you know Custodes better. And 3, Custodes are still good in the team's format, I think. And I don't regret us two making that choice at all.
Yeah, it was a weird one, because I mean, Grey Knights are very specific. I think Grey Knights are a far better team's army.
Yes.
Than Custodes. I think the games that I had, though, and the matchups that I was put into, I think probably Grey Knights would have performed worse.
Yeah, 100%.
And I know Custodes far better than I know Grey Knights.
100%.
I've only played like 2 Grey Knights games of 10, so that would have been a disaster.
But the thing about the Grey Knights is that you can get consistent scores, right? So if you take the behind enemy lines and deploy, and you go up and down within 3 inches, like there's ways of engineering a closer matchup. Whereas the Custodes were, because of how negative everybody, including myself, I will hold up my hands. I won't put you in that, Alan, because you've been very positive, much more positive than I have. But there has been a lot of negative feedback on the Custodes Codex, and we thought that the Custodes matchup would be interesting because people would underestimate it, and I do think people underestimated it massively.
It's interesting, wasn't it? Because people listening, what you do is at the start, when you're putting basically when you get paired, your little teams go off into little corners and have like a little scheming session, like 5 or 10 minutes, where you're all like, oh yeah, I can play him, or I can't play him, or that list, what's this, blah 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 blah, and then once you've done that, the scheming bit, which is one of the best parts of it, to be honest, then you put it down. Like, I can remember 3 of the matchups. Yep. One of the matchups I completely ballsed up who I should go into because I didn't even know what they did. We'll talk about that. But I can remember thinking, actually, there's only one bad matchup for me here. Maybe that's the list. Should we go into the list?
Yeah. So,
okay.
So when you design a team's list, you can do it one of 2 ways. You can do it the right way. You can do it the way we did it. The right way is to go, okay, this army does this one thing really well, and we're going to engineer it into XYZ matchup. The other way of doing it is to take an all-comers list, and I think that we were, across the board, across the 5 of us, just playing things that we like to play. So, What did you have in your list? I should have popped this up, but I didn't have time to put it on screen, so just run through it quickly.
Oh, it's nice. Yeah, so I think I would run this list in a singles tournament.
It is very singles.
It's very single. So I had a Blade Champion with no enhancements. I had Valerian and I was Shield Host, I should say.
I was going to say,
Shield Host.
Start off at the start. It's 2,000 points. That's the first one, and it's Shield Host, which is, if you've listened to any of the stuff we've done before, our favourite.
Our favourite by far. And I'll explain specifically why it came up crux. But so Valerian, and I had a Shield Captain with the Pyrethite Spear and the Shield, the extra wound, and he had Castellan's Mark, which is the redeploy. I then had 2 units of 4 guard, various loadouts of shields and spears. I then had 2 units of Wardens, 4-man. I had a Caladius. I had a Koronos, and I had 5 Sagittarium. Outside of that, I had 2 Inquisitors. I had Greyfax and I had Draxus. And I also had the Inquisitorial Henchmen.
Yes, you did, which are very good.
Yeah, they were good, and 60 points is not a lot. So that was the list. No sisters, no sisters at all, which I was a little bit nervous about. To be honest, a little bit nervous. But yeah, that was the list, and I had two practice games. One of the practice games was into sisters with the know three non-line of sight exorcists, um, three rhino or two rhinos, and then three big squads of flagellants, and then I had arco flagellants or whatever they're called, and
Yep.
then I had the sisters like robot Elta shooty ones. I never remember the name of
Oh God, that's going on. Yeah, go on, carry on.
the ones that go with Vol. Uh, so yeah, and then the second warm up was Black Templars. So yeah, it was kind of all over the shop.
Paragon Warsuits. Sorry, I just had to go look at the box I've got on my
That's
shelf. To be like, what the fuck was
That's
that?
it.
What's it called? Yeah, Paragon Warsuits.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, like, those are my two warm ups, and I was very comfortable with the list because it's very similar to my LGT list.
Yeah, so
Um,
it's worth stating that I would say the output, the killing power of Custodians has only got better since LGT. It's the survivability that's different, right? So
um,
okay,
I would
interesting.
I would disagree with that.
Okay,
I would disagree with that. Our output has got better for one turn.
but
Oh,
okay, but the output's the same as the LGT, right? In terms of the Sagi are still doing the same thing the Sagis are doing outside the Coronas. It's still the same play.
yeah. I
Um,
think the difference is, and I think this is where I probably disagree with you, is because we lose models and units quicker,
hmm,
our ability to maintain that output drops. So turn one and two, we tend to have the same output, but turn three, four, and five, we've lost more models and units, so we drop off a lot quicker.
so if if I can clarify, what I mean by that is when you're looking at if a unit should kill something or what it picks up, it's still going to be the same maths. You just have to adjust it for what you've lost so far, right? So it's
But
still
yeah, yeah. If
doing
you're looking at
minus one, two
unit on
damage.
unit, yeah,
That's what I'm trying to
yeah,
get at, right? So when you're
yeah,
doing the matchup, so one of the reasons why keeping it similar to the LGT is you kind of have already played the output, even though you got the one big turn and the losses and whatever else it might be, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I felt comfortable with it because I kind of knew in my head where to go with it, what what we commit
That's
into
my
what.
point, right? And then with the
Yeah, yeah,
Inquisitors, you've used Inquisitors before. Have you used Greyfax that much or not really?
yeah, yeah. She was LGT.
Okay.
She's the only reason I was kind of taking Greyfax was primarily because Julio
Yep.
had mentioned that we might come up against Necrons or Orcs quite a lot. The ability to put Greyfax in there because she's got the anti-character 4+ dev wounds.
Yes. 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 Yes.
I could snipe and I could double that up to kind of power through any feel no pain they may have if I shoot twice.
Yep.
Um, that was the thinking behind Greyfax.
So okay, it's a nice transition, right? So the first one was you were thinking about potentially Necrons. Now, I would say we thought when we put you down, if we put you into something strong as a defend, as they were defending, we were attacking, they'd always pick you. So we were sitting there going, right, what's the worst matchups around? There's going to be Orcs as defenders, probably. There's going to be Ironstorm. There's going to be Necrons, right? And so when you built your list, were you thinking, okay, Bully Boys, what do Bully Boys do? Green Tide, what do Green Tide do? Because I know we were discussing a little bit about, like, could you take that with all the output, with all the characters? And you've already said Greyfax was in there for a specific reason. But did you think you're going to have really nasty matchups? Or, like, what were you thinking?
I'm actually quite comfortable into Green Tide and Bully Boys.
Which is interesting.
I was actually quite comfortable into them. Or I would have. I didn't actually play them. I felt comfortable. Necrons, I would have felt more um, kind of. I would have been challenged a lot more. I would have been very much uncomfortable in that game. And funnily enough, I didn't even play them either. You did, didn't you, with your
Yep,
World Eaters?
twice.
So I think it was interesting. Whereas before, I feel like I knew where Custodes were
Yep.
in the meta. after the codex, even though it's in a teams environment, even in a singles environment, I'd be, I would be going up to a table and thinking, I have no idea how this goes. I know how like individual interactions go.
Yep.
So, for example, I know that if I move that squad of 5 up or get the charge in, I know I'm going to kill that unit.
Yep.
But then I don't know if I have the backup to kind of take the hit and then keep going even through the Fort Villain Pain, all that kind of stuff,
So it's worth saying that obviously we spoke about it before. We're not going to harp on it too much, but the Feel No Pain from Wardens is the defense. It's a big defense of this.
The only one we got, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, throughout the whole tournament, the guard just got vaporized.
Yeah, and so on the outset, I was like, if we mess up your matchup, like badly mess up your matchup, there is not much the rest of the team can do to cover. So we have to make sure that your matchup is not always favourable, but on the side of keep it close. Knowing you as a player, knowing what you can do, I felt very comfortable that you can always keep a game close. You're always going to take tactical. You're never going to take fixed. It's not a list that takes fixed. Is that correct? You never took fixed, did you?
Yeah, never took fixed.
Yeah.
Unless they gave me 2 fixed, I wouldn't take it.
Yeah. And so, with that being said, and with careful planning or whatever, your first matchup was into Ironstorm. So completely messed up where we wanted to hide you from. And
that was the only one I said. The only one I said that would actually cane me.
Yep.
And
sorry, Alan. Just before the other thing to note is on the teams, on the UKTC teams, there are 3 different tables. So you have the normal standard one that everybody plays at every tournament. You have a light version and a heavy version. Now the heavy version is usually 2 pieces of terrain sit on the middle objective, and the light version is the mid elves. If people don't know what that is, there's 3 shapes of elves, elf-shaped runes, and the mid elves are turned around, and they give you a different angle, right? So shooting armies like to be on light, and melee armies like to be on heavy, but it's not massively different, but it is different enough. And so, shooting army, Ironstorm, wants to be on light terrain, and Alan went into light terrain, Ironstorm, which is a real big fuck up for game 1.
I was thinking, I was sat there, and as he was deploying, I was thinking, this is horrendous. This is absolutely horrendous.
I remember being like, that was bad. that was bad.
It was but funny enough, I think when we were doing it, I think I've mentioned before, the redeploy relic is absolutely vital for this, and it saved me. It absolutely saved me because he lined up his Repulsor Executioner and 2 of his Redemptors be able to move and shoot into my Koronos and my Caladius.
Mm-hmm.
I did tell him about my redeploy, but he's got to go somewhere, right?
Yep.
And I just went to the other side. I literally gave up one half of the board and said, right, it's this whole 1, whole 2. I'm going to just rely on getting secondaries from these 2 as long as I can and just see where we go. But yeah, it was. Let's just say it was very. Those Redemptors. I took 1 down.
Yep.
And I had no juice left to take his Executioner or his other 2 Redemptors down.
And yet, you won.
Yes, it was 18-2, I think.
18-2. You didn't just win, you smashed it. And why I'm trying to harp on this is that this is a crap matchup. Like, into a lot of players, you're going to be sitting there being like, what do I do? And whilst you might not win in solos, there is ways of keeping this close where you don't mess up your rankings overall. You are going to have bad matchups. Now, there is also a chance where if you turn cards, you get better cards than they do. As long as you're doing the primary game, which Custodes still do very well, you can keep it close and maybe even edge out a win. So yes, in teams it's unusual, but also this was not the matchup we wanted for you, and you were able to get a win for this.
I did get lucky. You mentioned about I got lucky on my secondaries. The first few turns, he had some shocking secondaries, and I had some pretty decent ones. Where you've not got a lot of
Yeah,
disposable assets, and his first round or second round, he's pulling investigate signals or something.
yeah, yeah.
Which it's not good for him, and he's not scoring consistently. And the player was a really nice guy, not that experienced, but his list was very sharp, and he knew how to use it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it all came down to one play, which made the differential
Left hand
so
side, the
massive.
guard.
Well, yeah. So I just threw um, one squad of guard into hit because he had some the guys that dropped 3 inches away.
Inceptors, plasma
Inceptors.
inceptors.
He
Yeah,
had he had some plasma inceptors. So I was thinking, I've got to put Greyfax with the henchman for the 12-inch deep strike
yeah,
tomorrow.
yeah,
So Greyfax had to go with him, and then I had one squad of guard that didn't have an attached character. So I was just like, sod it, I'm just going to throw them in. And I was able to like do a bit of move blocking, just be a nuisance, and then make a lot of 4-up invulnerable saves, which slowed down the side that I'd basically given up on. But the real play that won the game massively was the Axis double shooting non-line of sight into his scouts,
Oh yeah.
which picked them up, and then it meant that he didn't have anything in the middle, which meant I rapid ingressed my blade champ in the middle with the wardens, popped the fort feeling no pain. He only had one redemptor that could go into them because of the angle,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then I moved advanced and charged onto his home objective,
Yeah.
and that he couldn't get me off
And
from
then you
the end of
pulled capture as well, didn't you? Like there was
yeah,
a
yeah, oh yeah. Then I pulled capture. Then the next round it was behind enemy lines, and it was deployed teleport home. So it was like one thing after another. It just all worked really well, and then he never got the right cards, if you know what I mean. So that was the only reason.
and it's the thing. Like his damage output was still high. You still lost bodies and models, but you played that game as a game rather than as a killing game or an attrition game. And yes, the cards went in your favour. But even if the cards had gone against you, I think from a team's point of view, you wouldn't have lost badly. It's a hold one, hold two. You understood what you had to hold. You just still scored some secondaries. And I think the maximum you could have lost out was maybe 20 points based on how it played out, based on everything going wrong. I don't know how you feel about that.
When he got his executioner with line of sight onto my Coronos, it melted.
Yeah.
It was on full health, and then all of a sudden it was gone.
It's still horrible.
It
really is horrible.
Yeah, it was disgusting. My Caladius dropped just from 2 redemptors. My guard squads, apart from the one that made a ridiculous amount of 4-up invulnerables, melted to his redemptors. And really, it was it really highlighted to me our real weaknesses into the current Marine matchup.
Yeah.
Is they've got a lot of high AP, and when I say high AP, you only need AP2, right?
Yep.
But it's all decent damage, and I've got no way to reduce that.
Yeah.
And that was my issue. The fight, losing the fight first, did not matter at all. It was the -1 damage.
So the -1 damage is huge on a damage 2 army. What would you say if you were to say now that you learnt from the Ironstall matchup in the current codex? Ignore Leviathan, it's all going to change. But if you drew that in singles, are you going crap still? Or are you going, okay, I can keep this close and I might be able to edge this out? Like, what's your mindset?
So you need 2 shooting threats, 2 of them. One or both can be Caladius, but I used one as a Caladius and then one as the Coronas and the Sag.
Yeah.
Which each like one shot vehicle, I think it was. So I think the principle is that we can kill them in. The only way we're going to kill Redemptor is if we shoot it.
Yep.
Get enough down through chip damage, and then when we charge, we're popping our fives, exploding fives, stuff like that. But it's really difficult. if they've got 3 Redemptors, you've got to play. And the fact that it was hold 1, hold 2
It was good. It's
it
not
was good.
taking
If it was hold 1, hold 2, hold 3, he's won.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And then the final question before we move on: do you think Shield Host was still the right pick for that matchup, or do you think Talons would have been better?
No, because that time when I needed to shoot, get into combat. For example, I went in when I did my advanced charge with the Blade Champion.
Yep.
Blade Champ's going in. He's -4 on his dev wound.
It's even the redeploy, right? You have to have the redeploy.
Yeah. If I didn't have the redeploy, because he went first. Because the way he deployed, he could have got line of sight and shooting. Because it's almost impossible to hide a Coronos.
Yeah.
And then if you're going to hide a Gladius, you've got to put it all the way at the back, which means it's all like in the corner around the big L, which means it's almost like out of the game or something.
Yeah.
So the redeploy really helped me structure them into the game. But yeah, I would have lost 400 or 500 points turn 1.
Agreed.
He had a whirlwind. As well, and that whirlwind, I hate that thing. Because he was always giving me like, there's 5 saves, 6 saves. I was thinking, every time it shot, it was 1 or 2 dead custodians.
Yeah. Interesting. All right, so we matched up badly, but you managed to pull out a very good win. And even if it had gone the other way and the cards had been different, I think it'd been a narrow loss. It would have been a massive loss. So we move on to round 2. Round 2 is deep.
This was my fault. This was my fault.
So round 2, we go into a very nice team and
a good team.
Good team, yeah, very good team. And then they put down demons, and Alan's like, right, I got this, guys. Guys, don't worry, easy win. He was saying, all right, just bigging himself up, easy street. And after the match, he goes, Jesus, Be'lakor does this, and I was like, yeah. He goes, I didn't know that. And so we misunderstood this matchup massively.
Look, I knew he picks him up, right? But I didn't. For some reason, I had no idea, or I couldn't link the two. That 3 inches around him is your, corrupted area, whatever it's called. And
Shadow of Chaos.
So I had,
you can drop within 6. Yeah.
I had no idea. So literally, turn 1, I get turn 1, so I'm like moving up, not worried about getting line of sight, and because he's got everything around Be'lakor at the back.
Yep. So you can't shoot
and then he had told me, and I just hadn't connected it. And then he literally picks up Be'lakor, picks up 6 bloodletters, the blood cavalry
blood
crushers, and the character blood crusher.
Yep.
Puts it about 3 inches away from my guard squad on the left, and I'm like, what the bloody hell is going on here? I'm like, oh god. So literally from that point, the entire match was a scramble, as I lost literally half of one side of the flank. I lost pretty much everything that I'd committed to putting into that. I managed to keep the squad alive but it was on one guy or something.
Can you remember if it was Monster Mash or MSU? Like, what was the demons list?
Oh no, so he had Be'lakor, Bloodthirster, and a Great Unclean one.
Yeah.
And then he had 2 big blobs of blood
crushers.
Cavalry blood crushers. A couple of characters in them, and then the rest were things like
Nurglings and
Nurglings, hounds. He had a few plague bearers and stuff. But yeah, I mean, the end result was, I think I was really chuffed with it. I got it to a draw, so we drew 10-10, and I was just, I made it so hard not knowing that was the case. I just didn't connect it in my head that he could do it turn 1 and then pick up a second unit and put that within the order. I hadn't made that connection, and I think that's part of the issue. I played demons once or twice this edition, but I just had no idea it could do that.
That's quite funny. So what would you say, do you think that's a win normally for you? Like 3-bit characters, 2 damage dealing at like outputs, then lots of MSU kind of doing actions. How do you feel about that? If you knew the matchup, if you knew that the Be'lakor up and down works,
I probably have said I didn't want to play them if I'd have known that. Um, I wanted to kind of. I think I would have had probably better matchups elsewhere. Um, in against them. However, I was really impressed with. For example, he hits me with the Blood Crushers,
yep,
and like on a 4-up they do D3 mortals,
Yep.
but that's seven of them. He's got 6 plus a character.
yes, he does.
So I think he gave me like 13 mortals. So I'm like, oh, holy what is going on here?
Yep.
And so I end up popping the 4-up on the pain, and I think I rolled obnoxiously well. So Shield Host gives us the tools. If I would have been Talons, I only would have had a 5-up.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that. I mean, I would have had more disposable assets because I would have had more sisters. But this was.
I mean, the sisters would have been able
hold
to
more,
screen
kill
your
one,
guard,
kill
right?
more.
The sisters
Yeah,
would have
but
been
this
able
was
to screen your
hold
guard.
one.
The blood crushers would have gone into the sisters, and you'd have picked up the blood crushers in return.
He wouldn't have done that into the sisters
Yeah, it's
though.
true. It's a very good point.
So
It's a very good point.
yeah, and this is hold one, hold more, kill one, kill more.
Purge the foe. Yep.
So yeah, purge the foe. So he was struggling to score any points with kill more. So every round I was doing kill more, whereas he was doing secondaries a lot better than me, and I was doing primary a lot better. I had an opportunity to win it in the end of some bit of a. I needed a decent charge. I failed the charge, which was a bit of a shocker, but that would have been a big swing because I had capture on the outpost, and it would have stopped him getting. It would have stopped him getting hold more at the end, and it would have stopped him getting defend, and it would have given me hold more. So yeah, it's things like that. But I got it to a stage, and what I because I really want to focus on like individual units and what it does and what they did, but the Sagittarum was so important here with the Dev Wound spam out of the Coronos, and what I think a lot of armies that are going into, or a lot of armies that we're going into, if we're doing that typical Caladia spam, Wardens and Caladia spam list that seems to be doing the round at the moment,
Which is how
I
I
would
would
have
build
got,
it.
yeah, I would have got hammered by that guy. He was a really good player, but I would have got absolutely hammered by him if I'd have done that. So I mean, if he's a blood crushers, he doesn't care if I'm doing 4 shots into them. They've got a 4 pinfall.
It's also worth
Right, so
knowing that the Warden 4+ Feel No Pain is shooting and fight phase, right?
it's whatever. It's a single phase, whichever one you pop it in.
But it's not the charge phase when the blood crushers go off.
Yeah, it's not a charge phase, yes.
So you still have to spend the
but
CP to keep one of them alive. Like to.
if you wanted to do it then,
Yeah.
that's what I used the strat because it was a mortal one. It's mortals. But a typical the Sagittarium are what kept me in that because I didn't have any assets that I could divert that could get into those blood crushers that had charged me and done the damage turn 1. I had one guy left and a tank, and then my Caladius on like 4 wounds or something. So I didn't have.
What did the Sag pick up?
Blood crusher unit.
Did they? Nice.
Yeah. The only one that was left was the character at the end. So the Sag enable me to be a bit of a punchback if I don't use them as a first turn strike. It kept me in it. Absolutely kept me in it. And also, I've got Valerian with them, and he's moving forward on with them, and he's giving them that offensive output as well. So again, Shield Host. I cannot say that Shield Host in any of my matchups wasn't the best one. It was by far the best option. Potentially, there's someone who.
I was gonna say the thing that's interesting about this is I would be a naysayer on the Coronis in Sag, because I'd go, well, that's over a fifth of your army, so it's like 425 points, right? 225 for Sag,
Yeah.
right? And 200 for
Yeah.
Coronis, right? So if you are one of those players who don't play with Forge World, and I completely understand that, this is off limits to you. If you are one of those players who plays with Forge World, like myself, I would still be a naysayer on this, because I was like, does it do what you want it to do? And yet the output is incredible. So because the Cronus is rerunning all wounds, you fish for it and you get, it's like 15, which is 13, you get 2 and 2, so it's 8 almost guaranteed. If you spike up a little bit, 10 or 12. Like, they can take down big targets. And you can, especially the way that you play it, you can take out a linchpin part of the army, right?
Because you got to remember, you're pretty much going to get 2 to 3 dev wounds through from the Coronis shooting.
Yeah, that's true.
That's 8 shots, twin linked dev wounds as well, right?
Yeah,
and
true.
then if you slap Valerian on top, Valerian's got 3 shots.
So because Valerian counts as dev wounds as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, so Valerian
counts as auto 6 works.
His auto 6 works and makes it 2 dev wounds, and then he's normally rolling, because he's got 3 dice, he's normally rolling 1 innately anyway. So him on his own is giving 4 dev wounds through, plus the Coronis, which is normally 2 or 3.
I always forget that Valerian gives it.
Between the two of them, they're normally 6 or 7, and then you've got the Sag on top. So I find myself, I mean, for example, I overkilled in my next game. I overkilled a Nemesis Grand, Nemesis Dreadnought, I think it was, quite substantially, just on dev, and that was without Valerian. So yeah, it's just, I'm struggling to get to a point where I remove them from my list.
Are they an auto take for you?
Any? The only reason they wouldn't be is, well, if the new codex is coming and change things.
Okay, fine. So in current meta, currently where it is, you'd always be auto include Cronus, Sag, and Valerian.
Yeah.
Or...
I have Valerian's an auto take. Whether or not he goes with them is another matter.
Because you might need the Inquisitor for the Inquisitor or henchman.
In which case, the Valerian would generally go with the Guard Squad.
Got it. Interesting.
But yeah, that's kind of the crux of the matter there. But anyway, game three.
Yeah. So sorry. Just final thoughts on the demons list, because just generally it feels like you don't see demons around as much, but they are still tough. They have big units that can deal damage output, small scoring units. Are you when you played that? Mate, what were you thinking? Go on.
They are shocking for us. Honestly, they are shocking for us.
Did you try and take out the chaff? Did you try and take out the Nurglings and the hounds that were scoring, or were you trying to take out the big boys?
I was trying to. I had to because I was on the ropes and that up and thing. I had to throw everything into getting rid of his damage dealing. You can't score points if you're dead, right? So I had to remove his ability to kill me as fast as possible. But I was tickling away at them with Draxus non line of sight, and she was picking stuff up slowly. But yeah, mate, they are horrendous for us. I think Shield Host is the best into them, because you can reactively give a Fort Feel No Pain into the dev wounds, and then we can do 5-ups, gives us the kind of lethal hits as well. I can get, or I can see why potentially some people would think that Talons would be great into them. Especially with like the shooting, if you've got a big blob of Alaris. I think that could potentially work, but if I would have been Talons, I would have really struggled into that list, and I don't even want to talk about if I was character damage, Auric Champions. That would have just been, packed up after turn 1, to be honest.
Fair. Right, okay, so far ITT, you've had 2 shocking matchups, and you've managed to get a win and a draw, which is incredible. Well done, fair play. I would say that from our point of view, we're going. Where do we want Custodes to be? Where do we want them to go into? Because there are certain matchups, at least in our head, we were thinking you could surprise people. You could either take some sting out of them, or you could get a good win and offset a bad loss elsewhere. So game 3 rolls around, and it was a very friendly team from Denmark. And you went into, what was it, Eldar? No.
No. This was the. I think this one's the one that had all the Welsh players.
Oh, was that? Oh, of course it was.
Denmark was was
game
round 4.
Yeah. This is the Welsh team. Yeah.
Yeah, they were quite a strong team. And I went into Grey Knights.
Yeah. I was going to say, before the game, somebody was like, "Who's playing Custodes? I want to shake their hand." And after the game, they were like, "Oh, Custodes still slap because you got your win."
No, I got a draw.
Oh, was it a draw? It
was a draw. Oh, you're thinking of the Denmark one again, but the this one's probably scrappier than the Demons one.
So it helps that you knew what Grey Knights do better. Too soon?
Yes, yeah, it does. It was. I deserve that. It did help. What didn't help was I've only played them once since the Dread Knights got buffed, and they're all like AP2 ignore cover now.
Yeah, strength 10 AP2,
and it's like 3 damage. Yeah. So they were like, they really slapped in. They like perfect Custodes killing profile.
2-6, 4 mid runs, a bunch of wounds.
Yeah, and it was I don't know. It was a real struggle.
So again, this is not the matchup we wanted to put you. Like usually, we want to put you into. The problem with the teams tournament we went to is everyone was running 3 of a very similar type of list, and then 2 kind of wildcard type things. And so it's hard, but we were trying to.
This is where we became a bit of a liability, wasn't it?
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah.
Custodes were a bit of a liability there because we're not. There was
because they could have engineered a really big win against you. So the Grey Knight game, they thought they had this, right? They thought this was going to be out the wazoo. For those who don't know what Grey Knights do, is end of your turn, opponent's turn, they pick up 3 and they can bring them back down. So if they go second, they get turn 1 deep strike across the board, and they can do 3-inch deep strikes, and they can take fixed and get a bunch of points. They're a really good teams list because they can guarantee points. So they were quite happy that without your ability to screen out their deployment, with the very low units, with no dev protection, they could do work into you. So to get a draw was incredible. To get a draw was very, very good. So how did it play out?
I have to admit, I found them picking up and dropping and moving around and their speed to be very frustrating. Really frustrating.
I mean, I played him the LGT with CSM, and the guy went to me, "I'm going to tell you this once, and I won't tell you it again. I can pick up when you get within range." I was like, "Yeah, fine." And I did it, and he looked at me, and he picked it up. And I was like, "Oh yeah, you did tell me." And next turn I did the same thing, and he just looked at me with this like frown on his face, being like, "Are you just dumb?" And picked it up and went back down. And I ended up just like that. It cost me so many placings for the LGT because I started trying to swing at them because I got frustrated. Like I just saw red and was like, I don't understand what's going wrong with this. And then that guy went on to lose the next 2 games. So thanks for that.
I couldn't. It was difficult. I think what kept me in the game is first turn, Koronos moved up, got an angle. Once he dropped the Saj out, and I one-shot a Dread Knight off. I think because he had so many paladins, he had 5 Dread Knights in total. Yeah. It was a real struggle. And when I did get into it, I went first.
And this is go second and win, right? This is the go second get 20.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. So when I went into him, I just knew I needed to go like everything, but I was losing units quickly. When I don't have a lot of units to lose. Yeah. And yeah, it was. I was thinking in my head, I can't let him get ahead because at the end he's going to get 15 points. Well, no, at the end, he's going to get 25 points
Yeah, 25. Yeah.
on his primary. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's like, if I'm not well ahead by his turn 5, I've just cost the team like 10 or 15 points or something. And
Again, this is what's key, right? Because you're thinking that as you're playing it out. So even if the game's going your way or whatever, you're trying to still keep it close enough that they can't do that. So to get a draw is incredible. For those who don't know, to get a draw has to be a 5 VP kind of either way. So it's either a win, quote unquote, win or a loss by but 5 points is the differential, and you get a draw. So knowing that they're going to get 25 points, knowing they can go up and down, they can dictate that end of play turn to get a draw is fucking really good, really good.
yeah, I mean, on the last turn, or on turn 4, we got investigate signals for 6. You know, capture extend no man's land for 5 and stuff like that. So I was thinking, ah, crap. And then I just managed to do enough damage. The last in my phase where I did the spike, you know, my go turn, I just managed to do enough. And again, that was his librarians
Yeah.
just went to town with their mortal wounds,
Yeah.
and every time they did that, I managed to feel no pain and just push them right back. I remember him giving me on one stage. He gave, I think he did 14 mortals between 2, and then the next round he did about 11 from 1. And I was just like, this is just horrendous. But that stratagem for feel no pain against mortals, you're able to use it when you suffer a mortal wound.
Yeah. So you pop it afterwards, right?
Yeah, no other, apart from the static feel no pain against psychic, which you would have in Talons if you're close enough to a sister's unit.
Yep.
Apart from that, we don't have any other ability which we can pop when we're targeted with abilities like that.
And
So,
I think one of the things is it's quite easy to say you got lucky on some dice rolls or whatever, but it wasn't luck. This is not a matchup, again, you would favour. I would have thought that Grey Knights into Custodes was a Grey Knights convincing win, usually. But there is enough...
Did I say I wanted it? Sorry, did I say I wanted it?
I think you were...
Because I came back from getting a cup of tea and you'd...
it's because you were like, yeah, just do it. Yeah, just do it.
Yeah, I meant the other ones.
I mean, Votan was rough. I completely messed up the Votan.
Oh, I couldn't have been into that. Votan would have been horrendous for me.
Okay, so I didn't jump on Votan, but I took Votan, and then it was just trying to work out what the least worst matchups were. Into that Welsh team, they were trying to practice some stuff for WTC, and they were good players, and our lists were not optimised for that. So it wasn't a bad loss as a team, but it was a bad loss personally for me. And
maybe we should highlight that. You know, at the start we did mention that a lot of teams are running blah blah blah. We had Eldari, which wasn't a flavour of the month Eldari list. It had
an Avatar in.
Yeah, right. We had Drukari, which was about 30 units.
Ridiculous units.
We had Tau with 2. What are they called? Sam's going to hate me for forgetting. Hammerheads, that's it. Yeah. Yeah, which was not flavour of the month, but really powerful. And then we had yourself with World Eaters with no Angron.
No, non-Gron.
And then we had Custodes. So we were not, not optimised. We had no Marines, we had no Necrons, we had no Orcs. We didn't, we no Sisters. We weren't really at the height of competitiveness, let's say.
No, and we knew that going into it. We were playing stuff that we liked. And so when we drew into the Wales team and we were 1 win, 1 draw, we were like, that's a rough matchup for us. And it was a loss overall. But to get a draw against that was incredible. If you were to say on day 1, what have you learned about Shield Host? It has defense. It can still find matchups, or it can still find a way to keep matches close. Because you're undefeated day 1, right? A win, 2 draws, that's undefeated day 1. That's really good for a codex that people are basically saying, what's going on with this? And we didn't engineer you into anything particularly favourable.
No, it's that I feel like they have good defensive abilities still, nowhere near what it was, but that -1 to hit is on an objective. That was crooks against demons. It really was good. I needed that. So hitting on 3s, right? So obviously I'm going up to 4s.
Yep.
That's swingy as hell. That coupled with the Fort Feel the Pain and Psychic. All of that stuff kept me in it. And it wasn't so much the output that I was after, it was I just feel that Shield Host gives me the ability to scrap much better than any of the other ones, and I think that's because the type of lists I play are quite infantry heavy, a bit different from your normal lists. Maybe it's because I hate the idea of running kind of flavour of the month or whatever. So I find myself in most of the games I actually win, they're really scrappy. So having a Shield Host just really fits that for me.
Yep, agree. And I don't think that we regretted you being Shield Host over Talons. Shield Host is exactly where we wanted you to be. And yeah, it did what we wanted. It did better than I think we were expecting to do. We were expecting close losses, and you were getting draws and wins. So fantastic. So day 2 rolls around, and we're into a very lovely Danish team. If you're listening, hello. We enjoyed playing you. And you went into, what did you go into? CSM, that was it. CSM was Vindicators with Abby with Chosen or something?
No, it wasn't Chosen. It was Possessed. It was Worldy. Sorry, not Worldy. It was Terminators with Abby.
That was it.
He had 2 Vindicators.
All the bikes as well. He had the 3 bikes with
all the bikes
with a bunch of stuff.
I think it was pretty much Innes's list, right? And that output was just and a Hellbrute. That output was absolutely horrendous.
So so this is pre-Codex CSM, and we were quite happy with you into this, right? We thought this is actually okay. Not a good matchup by any stretch of imagination, but this is a matchup we wanted, right?
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah.
Had targets
like demons.
Targets for had targets for your Caladius. It had targets for your Sagi out of the Coronas. Like it was convincing enough that I think that we underestimated the output. And so around Abby, around the Hellbrute, the sheer, with all the packs going off and whatever, it kind of exposes what goes wrong with Custodes, i.e. how quickly you are to pick up.
Yeah, and the output when he needed it was also I popped my go turn 1 round too soon.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I did it 1 round too soon, which was great for that round, but horrendous. What I did was I rapid ingressed a Warden unit.
Yep.
Behind the middle where he couldn't see me with anything, so he couldn't shoot.
Yep.
Then, because I went first, I think it was. Then it was my turn, so I sorry, he went first. So I knew I was going to do that, so I popped my go turn. Then.
Yep.
So then, when it was my turn, I moved up that Warden unit. Then make a charge on Abby's squad.
Mm-hmm.
He overwatched with the Predator Annihilator and the autocannon one, and picked up 3 Wardens. Yeah, just nuked the Wardens out. Yeah, horrendous. That was with me making more than average saves. I think it was just didn't. So all of a sudden, I got 1 Warden left in a character.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided, well, I can't go into Abby. So it was kind of wasted my go turn. So it meant that later in the game I had to throw units into Abby and the Terminators who had moved into the middle objective. And he just Armor of Contempted. And I killed, from a squad with the Blade Champion and Guard and Valerian and Wardens, both full squads. I killed 4 Terminators and took 3 wounds off Abby.
Yeah.
And then Abby powered up. Absolutely powered up and just went to town.
I was watching at that point. Yeah. So this is an important thing, right? Is again everything kind of was going wrong. You popped too early, whatever, but you still got the win.
I wouldn't say everything was going wrong. I managed to control where he put his Vindicators.
How was the second scoring going?
good. It was going good. I felt like I was coming along nicely. I think I managed to control where his Vindicators went. I managed to pop his Hellbrute quite early on. I didn't have enough assets to deal with his bikes, and his bikes were good. Um, and there were things I would have done differently. So, in hindsight, a much better play would have been to throw that Warden squad that I'd have dropped down into the other objective.
Mm-hmm.
In the kind of my side of which he had a Rhino on with some Havocs and his Possessed.
Yeah.
Or what was left of his Possessed. If I'd have got in there and dealt with that, he wouldn't have been able to deal with them. And then all that would have meant was that I just would needed to clear him off from the middle every turn. He wouldn't have been able to do anything. He would not have been able to do anything. So yeah, I was impressed with how the list stayed up, but it was all to do with controlling what his line of sight was with his Vindicators, because the output that list has is, or had, because it's not there anymore, was terrifying, absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fascinating because I'm still not convinced on the list, but you obviously played it and saw it and understand it in real life. And because I was like, yeah, you've got that. Like, I thought you had this playing a CSM on the other side, knowing you as a player, knowing where we were at, blah 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 blah. Looking at the previous results, looking at what the list does, I was quite happy with you into that. So it was a good win as well. It was a convincing win, I think.
No, I think it was like 11-9 or something, wasn't it?
Or was it close?
But,
I thought it was
yeah,
13,
it was really close.
I thought it was 13-7.
No, 11-9. What was really when he finally got his bikes in line, my Coronos had lost like 4 wounds. When he finally got his bikes onto my Coronos, the melter bikes, they just melted, absolutely melted.
The plasma bikes.
Plasma bikes, yeah, not melter bikes. Sorry, yeah, the plasma bikes. Yeah, he just absolutely melted my Coronos. And I was like, can bikes? What the hell? What the absolute hell? He was like, yeah, they do that. It was nuts. Yeah. He managed to pull back quite heavily, and that's why it was only 11-9.
So, just in terms of, again, I'm just trying to whiz through this now because we've been going on for almost an hour. Great, that's meant to be a short one, but anyway, what do you take away from that? So the list itself was a bit ironstormy in terms of very tank heavy, very shooty, very good damage output. You've already said that losing stuff in Overwatch, losing stuff like in phases when you're activating always hurts. So going into it again, would you feel more comfortable? Would you play it massively differently? Would it what's going through your head in terms of what that list does, what that list represents?
Well, I played it again in turn 5, in round 5.
Fair enough.
It was pretty much exactly the same, apart from he didn't have bikes. He had lots of Legionnaires with Moes and
so fight first.
It was. They're quite tasty actually. The amount of output they have. And he had 2 Predators, but I think what I learned in round 4 really set me up for round 5. But again, it was the scrappiness that when he's throwing specific units at me, and I'm just like, oh crap, I really need 2 models to survive here. Get the OC, I've got 4, I need 2 models to survive. I'm gonna do 1 CP for -1 to hit, and let's just see where that takes me. And then he'd always roll 3s, right?
Yeah.
And it was one of those ones that it was just always there. Whether or not another shield host would have done that, I think what's perfectly kind of applicable to singles as well is that I felt that shield host was that turn, even though I fluffed it, the timing of it, that go turn, my damage output, even the wardens went through the roof. I'll be the first to admit that my wardens have bounced a lot more than normal because they got no rerolls. But in that turn, they almost felt like guard.
Interesting.
the amount of saves I was giving them, you know.
So, well, and let's touch on 5 because 5 was CSM again, and you already said like it was a good win that time, right?
Yeah, it was 19-1.
Yeah. And,
I felt very comfortable with it.
And sometimes there's lack of familiarity playing it, but good AP, high damage output is obviously Custodes' Achilles heel.
Yeah. What I would say in the 5th game, he really, really bounced with his Vindicators. And it meant that
That's why I don't
I
like them.
really was
They're
able
so
to control it.
sweet.
They are. But when you've got Abby with the rerolls, right?
Yeah.
And you've got Hellbrute with the exploding vibes, that all you're really worried about is the number of shots.
Yeah.
And that's where you keep a CP. Because you're going to get hits, a lot of hits. You're going to get a lot of explosions, and it was horrendous. But he really bounced with it. I was able to pick them both up in a turn in which I had bring it down. Yeah, and then I just ran away with it. And Valerian squad took a hit from. Valerian squad took a hit first turn from a Legionnaire squad with Lucius at first. That was really. I had to put my foot up to survive there. And then next turn they got hit with 2 Legionnaire squads and a Warp Talon squad. And in the end, Valerian was the only one standing. So out of my squad, and then Valerian picked up a whole Legionnaire squad of his. So I think it's funny because in each game, different parts of my list really felt like they were
MVP
best.
Yeah.
And overperforming, and I think that's probably what I was looking for, because I don't want to write a list which is reliant on 1 or 2 units, because otherwise if they go then it's game over, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And I think that's where, as a faction, we're really struggling, because when I walked around and could see other Custodes players,
they're running the Wardens and Caladius, right?
there was normally 1 or 2 blobs. Well, maybe because it's teams, right? But there was 1 or 2 blobs, and right, okay, I can see what built here, what they're doing for this. But as soon as those were dead, as soon as it was dead or gone, it was like massively. What was quite sad also is that some guy ran up to me, really nice guy, and said, "How are they doing? I've stopped playing since the Codex, and I'm here playing something else." And I was quite like, "Oh, that's quite sad."
Hey, whoa, yeah, what? Yeah, no, look, it's a fair point, and I kind of sort of final thoughts, because I don't want to go on too much longer. But just, you didn't go into something like Knights with a bunch of armor, high toughness, with an invine or whatever. Do you think if you'd gone to say Chaos Knights, you'd have been okay? 13 war dogs all pushing forwards, running through walls.
Yeah, on the go turn, I can pick up 6.
Can you?
6 or 7.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, it's not that, because they don't have an invul in combat, right?
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's kind of like
still AP2.
On the go
Oh no,
turn.
it's extra AP, isn't it?
Yeah, extra AP, AP3, and Valerian's AP4. Blade Champs are AP4, Devil Wounds. So all of a sudden, it's I might mix around who goes with what unit or whatever, but yeah, it's all good. I think I would have really struggled in hindsight. I know I said I was building for it, but I would have really struggled in the Crons.
Really?
Yeah, I think I really would have. And then I think I really would have struggled into Guard. Yeah. And probably I would have struggled into thinking.
The Hammerhead spam going through Coronis.
Yeah, Sam's list would have probably came. I wouldn't have been able to get close to damage dealing, because he'd have just pushed me back with those breaches, right?
Yeah, and it's a fair point, because you have played Tower recently. We've already spoke about that on the channel. And again, those are never matchups we're going to put you into. But it's interesting with the Chrome one. It would have been fun to see how that worked. It would have been fun to see how you went into Eldari. I kind of want to put you into that just to see what happened. um, on
I
day
think
two.
well, for everyone listening, the flavour of the month with Eldari there was just literally spammage of units, right?
And your brain.
And Urain, right? Just ridiculous numbers of units in Urain. And I think studies are quite good into that because each one of our units can pick up multiple enemy units.
And
Um,
that's actually a really good point, right? I kind of want to just maybe final thoughts on that, which is
yeah,
the strength that I'd say that you have is understanding exactly the output you're trying to get from your unit. So guard on an objective, shooting, double shooting, and then charging in with all your rerolls because you're on the objectives. Will pick up like it will pick up units. So do you think that you play any risk when you play? Do you think you're going okay? That should on average pick that up, blah blah blah, or do you try and aim to overkill to make sure you get your trades the way you want them to be?
um, it's a really good question. I think pre Codex, I would risk it. That should pick it up. I don't need any redundancy. Blah blah blah. Post Codex, I'm doubling up.
Interesting, because I would say that's a fundamental
Yeah.
difference to how we play. Because I always double up. I always like overkill to guarantee something. Whereas I've always thought that you can go, yeah, that'll do that, that'll do that, that'll do that. When it comes off, you're like, crap.
Yeah, but I think it's also a case of when I'm doubling up. The issue is if I'm doubling up to shoot a 150 point unit,
Yep.
and that's 400 points of my army, and if I've got characters, 500 points of my
Yeah.
armies, to double up. So, what I tend to say, for example, utilize Draxus a lot to kind of give me that redundancy. So, for example, if I'm poking out to get line of sight, I'll poke one unit out. Draxus then is her units. I've got the two up so I can't be targeted, for example, and I then structure it so Draxus is targeting another unit. However, she is within 18 inches of the first unit's target. If I don't kill that first unit, I can redirect, say for example, her non-line of sight.
Yeah.
Hit that, and she's still got that second shooting into her primary unit. And then if I need to get that redundancy extra, I pop my shoot again, even though if it's not the most efficient, and I'm only killing one or two guys, and it may get me much more value later on.
Mm-hmm.
If I think in my head, no, I need that dead. Even if I've popped a whole unit with Draxus double shooting before, 2 kill, 2 warp spiders. I popped that double shoot because I was like, no, guaranteed, they're just gonna pop somewhere, and lo and behold, his next one was behind enemy lines and deploy. So I was like, right, okay, right choice. But yeah, that's how I think about it. And previously, I wouldn't have cared because we had the kind of like the ability to kind of roll with it, but now we kind of don't.
Yeah, it's fair. I think so. Just my final thoughts on this, and then I'll let you sum up your stuff. But I came away much more optimistic based on your performance, knowing how good a player you are, but also knowing that even in the tough matchups, your ability to keep scoring and keep going with a list that is very flexible, very very balanced, it makes me go, okay, at RTTs, so little 1 day 3 game tournaments. This is a 2-on-1 list. This is a 60%. What's 2-on-1? Yeah, 66% win-loss ratio. Like, this is not all doom and gloom. It's not ideal. Still want the defense, blah, 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 blah. But played the right way, played with enough reps, playing with understanding what the units do. And, admittedly, with the Sag and the Cronus, which I'm now looking at buying a Cronus for, there is still play in this codex, which is always what we ask for.
Yeah, and I kind of had a little bit of a beforehand, especially after watching the Art of War, and them saying, "Oh, the Coronis is like the worst thing in our book." And Sag
we mention this almost
down there.
every episode.
Yeah, I know. I was kind of like beforehand. I was like, "Oh crap! I made the right choice here," and I really felt like I had afterwards. So I really enjoyed it. What would it do in singles? I don't know. I haven't lost with it in singles.
It's worth just summarising. You went 3 wins and 2 draws, so you were undefeated at the ITT.
The ITT, yeah. Singles, I've won. Singles is you almost don't get a draw, right? But I haven't lost it yet. Singles, but yeah, that's me. That's my final thoughts, and yeah, I'm just going to keep testing it.
Yeah, and I like it's interesting, right? I was doom and gloom. I thought this is never going to work. I was like, okay, Alan, just try and keep it close. Like somebody else here might help you out, blah blah blah. And then you kept putting out really good wins. And the Ironstorm one was fantastic. And player skill aside, whatever, there's still the list matchup. You'll always favour the Ironstorm, just because
Wouldn't want to play that again.
The sheer output. No,
but I would not want to play that again.
But in singles, you're likely to play it, right? You're likely to play a version of that. The Blood Angels version is doing the tours at the moment, blah, blah, blah. And you have to be ready for it. And if you're going to go to tournaments and you're going to keep playing mono-faction, you have to know that there will be just crap matchups. And what do? You keep the game close, you keep it rolling, you don't expose too much. You go to hold 1, hold 2, let's see what the secondaries are doing, and you get your trades when you get your trades. And you said it earlier, I'm just going to reiterate it. We still think Shield Host is still the best way of doing it. Because that go turn is so good. Because that go turn, when you engineer it properly, can keep the game close.
I mean, that go turn, the 3 games that I won, it won me those 3 games.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pretty much. 2 games that I drew, it kept me in the game. I need, it's like I need a really big turn here. I'm gonna set myself up. I'm gonna put my go turn.
Yep.
See what I can do, and all of a sudden I had maybe 1,500 points left on, or 1,400 points left, but I was hitting like I had 2k left.
Jeez.
And that was what it was, So,
yep.
But yeah, it's kind of swings and roundabouts.
Yeah. Right, okay. Hopefully you found that interesting. If you listened to it all the way, thank you so much. We've had a recent influx of new subscribers, so welcome to War on the Webway.
Yes.
This is what we do.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining us. We're going to keep doing it this way because we don't know any way of doing it, and it's a highly professional output.
Waffling.
We'll be back hopefully next week. We should be next week with a new topic. But we've got tournaments lined up. We've got things that we're planning for, and our attention is going to start to turn to Pariah Nexus and the changes that rule, and how we then shape up for the LGT, which is not too far away. It's only 3 months away.
I was going to say the next 3 months is pretty much the kind of pinnacle of the season, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting, but hopefully you join us for our thoughts. And that's it.
Cool. Thanks for joining, everyone.
Thanks for joining. Until next time.